Good morning, Create Schools. Today I'm going to talk about Hitler gaining some alliances. And so this is the fifth installment of our Why Had International Peace Broken Down by 1939? In other words, our Hitler chapter. So go ahead and take out a piece of paper and a pen and write all this down. Okay, so the Pact of Steel was made in 1939, and maybe you remember the Spanish Civil War was from 36 to 39. So right after, or right at the end of the Spanish Civil War, Mussolini and Hitler decide to join together and promise that they will act together in any future events and help each other out. And so now it was a clear division that Italy and Germany and Austria were all together, a nice little line down the center of Europe. Okay, we'll go ahead and write that down. And I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, then what surprised everyone was the Nazi-Soviet Pact in 1939. As you may remember, the Soviet Union and Germany were totally not friends. In fact, Hitler, one of his big things was to get rid of communism. So why did Hitler join together with Stalin and make a pact? So I just wanted to point out this little political cartoon right here. Wonder how long the honeymoon will last. So the marriage between Hitler and Stalin. Well, the answer is everyone knew, including Stalin and Hitler, it would not last that long. So the German foreign minister Ribbentrop and the Soviet foreign minister Molotov, you should remember Molotov, signed the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact. Okay? And in this pact, they agree, the Soviets and Germans, they agree that they're not going to fight each other if war in Europe takes place. Now, they're not actually agreeing to be friends. They're just agreeing not to fight each other. And so with them, they have decided what they will do is divide up Poland between them when everything is said and done. Okay, so go ahead and write that down, and we'll move on to the next slide. So the impact of this, basically it shocked the entire world because these two enemies who basically didn't like each other now are working together, and their political systems are totally opposed from each other. Meaning, remember, Hitler does not like communism, and Stalin does not like what Hitler's doing. But what it did for Hitler is, if you think about where Germany is, when they have a fight with France, they don't have to worry about the other side of their borders because Stalin has promised not to invade from there. And now the question is, what does this bring for Stalin? Well, Stalin knew that also the British and the French were not very pro-communist, and so he was a little worried already. Stalin was a little worried about what was going to happen when a war broke out to begin with. And so Stalin said, okay, Britain and France weren't really showing a lot of friendship. I'll go ahead and join with Hitler now. Now remember, they're not joining together as friends. They're just joining together to agree that they were not going to fight each other. So here I have a little cartoon. It's a Soviet cartoon. Then here CCCP is USSR. So here's USSR. The French and the British are directing Hitler away from the West and Europe and towards the USSR. So basically what that's saying is the French and the British basically pushed Hitler away, pushed Hitler and Stalin together. Okay, go ahead and take those notes, and we'll move on to the next one. So, how important was the Nazi-Soviet Pact? So here we've got our Hitler, we've got Mussolini, here's Stalin coming in, said, what, no chair for me? Okay, so this is in 1938, this is right before the Nazi-Soviet Pact. So he's kind of, they're not really wanting to be him to be part of their group. So it was really interesting, and that's why everyone was kind of like, this doesn't make any sense. So, to the question, how important was the Nazi-Soviet Pact? Well, basically, it allowed Hitler to feel comfortable. He was able to invade Poland without worrying that Russia was going to fight him, so it was only a one-sided war. It also made sure that the Western Allies they did not believe that Russia was going to fight against them in Germany. And basically Hitler then became so overconfident that nothing was going to happen with all the appeasement that's happening. And we'll talk again about appeasement a little bit more. With all the appeasement, giving Hitler everything he wanted, he really didn't feel that the British and the French would honor the promise to protect Poland if Germany invades. Because remember, after the Sudetenland, Chamberlain said, okay, Poland, we're definitely not going to let them invade you. Don't worry, that's not going to happen to you. And so when Hitler gets this Nazi-Soviet pact, he thinks, okay, maybe, or not maybe, I believe that I'm going to be safe if I attack Poland. And basically, people are saying, historians are looking back in hindsight and saying, if the Nazi-Soviet pact was never signed, Hitler would not have been comfortable enough to go to war. So it actually is the catalyst that really allowed Hitler to be able to do what he needs to do. Okay, go ahead and pause the video here and take some notes. Okay, so if you've seen this before, we discussed this in our second video. This is different answers depending if you describe an event, explain event, or assess event. Now, the Nazi-Soviet pact is often coming up in some form in a 6-point question, and so just go ahead and read through here. If you're just basically listing facts, then you get a grade C. If you just explain the facts, you get a B, but then you take it a step longer and you make an opinion about it, that's what gives you the grade A or the A star. And here we have this. You guys have already seen this one before in one of our previous videos of this series. Okay, again, you do not have to write these down, but if you want to stop and take a screenshot so you can read it over, you can get a lot of interesting information that you can add to your notes to make your notes even better. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 3 countries. They became increasingly more and more militaristic and more fascist. And so we're going to just take a look at the different countries and find out what's going on. Okay, Japan. So if you have to remember, first of all, Japan and Italy were on the Allies' side in World War I, so they were on France and Britain's side. But no one thought Japan was a very big threat. They figured Japan is fine, and in fact, if you remember in a couple political cartoons with the Treaty of Versailles, you see Japan just kind of looking on like, ooh, no one really cares about me. But then the Depression in the United States totally wrecked the Japanese economy because they relied on exports from the countries, from the U.S., from countries from the USA. And so those exports allows Japan's factories to work, and they gave a lot of people jobs. And the factories weren't running, and so therefore a lot of people were unemployed, and a lot of poverty really increased. So that is why Japan went and invaded Manchuria to get more resources, more area, more workforce, more of everything. So right after that happened, the Japanese prime minister was murdered, and the military took over. And the military started running the government. Okay, so that would be where it becomes increased military. And then Japan, they really needed to have all of those raw materials to make their necessary economy. And basically everything just totally disrupted. And they're like, what am I going to do? We are no longer part of the League of Nations. Everything is horrible. We're going to just keep on trying to get more and more and more. And so they decide, that pact between Germany and Italy, I think I will join it. So in 1940, Japan joins the Tripartite Pact, which is the Axis alliance. So we've got that center right there with Germany, Austria, and Italy, and then Japan joins in. Okay, go ahead and write those notes down. I'll go on to the next page. Here's Italy. Go ahead and just take a couple seconds to look at those political cartoons. So the upper right one, we've got Mussolini on the right and Chamberlain here on the left. and this is entitled They Both Want Peace in 1939. So here's the way Mussolini's thinking: kill everyone, eat them for dinner. And here's Chamberlain bringing the dove of peace: be appeasement, be nice together. So their ideas are totally off. Okay, then we've got Mussolini here that's pushing Hitler into the water of war, and it says, we have nothing to fear. With Spain and Hungary looking on, Spain, who's been beaten from the Spanish Civil War, or beaten up. Franco wins, but they have a lot of poverty. Even if you win, you still have a lot of problems. So in 1922, Mussolini had seized power in Italy. So that's right after World War I, and he was a very fascist, brutal party, and he had he hurt his political opposition. He wouldn't stand for them. And Hitler, when he was starting up, a lot of his ideas actually came from Italy. So remember, Hitler was just young, starting off. He wasn't in power in 22 when Mussolini took over. He didn't gain a lot of power until the 30s. So then Mussolini really wanted Italy to become a great political power. And remember, Mussolini stayed in the League of Nations. He actually never left it until the war, until he joined with Hitler. And so he needed his more resources, and that's one of the reasons why he went and invaded Abyssinia in the 30s. And so Mussolini was really wanting to put the nation's interest in first. So that means there's no way he's going to care about the League of Nations when you're worried about your own thing. And since he was being so aggressive, basically he's just, where everyone starts worrying about him. So I'm sorry, I'm rambling here a little, guys, sorry. But basically, Italy, again, if you remember like what I was saying about Japan, when you think about the big three, there was just, United States, England, and France, and Italy and Japan basically got totally ignored. So this is a little tip from history. Make sure when you are making peace treaties, you pay attention to all the nations on your side, all of the nations, giving them something, because Italy and Japan, who were both big players in World War I, totally jumped sides and changed sides because they just didn't feel like the big three were worrying about or taking care of them. Okay, so sorry about a little bit of rambling there. So go ahead and take those notes down, and we'll move on to our last slide. Okay, Germany. You should actually know lots and lots of things about Germany already, but I just wanted to go ahead and include it in here. So Germany was torn apart after the Treaty of Versailles. They did not like all the punishments put upon them, and that caused hyperinflation to happen. Okay, so you can see that in one of the previous videos in chapter 1. So Germany was totally angry at the situation, and they blamed others for it, and Hitler in particularly blamed the minorities, and he specifically decided he was going to blame the Jews and the communists, and that is the reason why there is problems, because of the Jews and the communists, is what Hitler said. And he was so convincing that people were able to believe him and join him, and so that he became stronger and stronger and stronger. And if you've ever listened to any of Hitler's speeches, he is very persuasive. He has a lot of power. He has a lot of charisma, and tons of people joined him. So he slowly rebuilt his military, as you know already. I have examples of on here. I won't read them for you. And really made his country strong again, being ready, prepared to attack, to expand his Lebensraum and create a grosser Deutschland. Okay, so these are all the notes. You can pause the video here and go ahead and take these notes down. And if you have any questions, let me know.